everybody, welcome back to Rachel's Talk Show. Today our topic is physician-assisted suicide and why it should be legal, because we are sovereign. So, physician-assisted suicide is where a doctor prescribes a lethal drug to a patient who has been terminally ill and who is suffering to end their lives and to end their suffering. People don't think it's a good idea because as doctors, as physicians, they have a list of roles as a healer. One of them is that they should not abandon their patient once it is determined that the cure is impossible. They must respect the patient autonomy, which is the patient's choices, and respect what their choices. They must provide good communication and emotional support, and they must provide appropriate comfort and care for pain control. So, a lot of doctors, physicians, can say that their role as a healer, this is stepping out of that and this is going against that. But I can argue that it is not. It is actually doing exactly what they should be doing. They should be respecting the patient's choices and doing what's best for them and what's going to make them the most comfortable. And in a lot of cases where people are terminally ill, they're suffering, they're sick, and a lot of them are so sick and weak that they can't even eat or drink. So they live and die because of starvation, because they can't move and get themselves up. They're so weak because they're so sick. So they're basically just breathing on a bed. They're not really living. A lot of them. No one wants to have to go through that suffering. And as a doctor, their role as a healer, this isn't. And they're supposed to respect the patient's choices and their autonomy. And yeah, a Gallup research from May of 2015 shows that 68% of Americans deem it morally right to do physician-assisted suicide, and that is an increase from 2 years prior to 2015. So 2013 to 2015, the people in America who believe it's morally right to commit physician-assisted suicide has increased by 10 percentage points. The core democratic value that it goes against is our sovereignty. We as Americans are supposed to be sovereign and be able to make our own choices. We decide ultimately when we eat, when we sleep, when we go to school, where we go to school, what we eat. So ultimately, if we were not in the care of a physician, we would be able to make that choice ourselves, and which would be very unsafe, and I do not recommend. But I'm saying ultimately that we are sovereign and we are supposed to have life, liberty, and property, the right to those. And we're also supposed to have the right to make any decision for ourselves. We do. Every day we make decisions for ourselves. And a doctor should respect that as part of their role as a healer. They need to respect people and their choices. And if someone is sick and suffering, how can you say it's better to let somebody die of dehydration and starvation slowly than to die peacefully and with dignity? Oregon has a Death with Dignity Act. Oregon is one of the states out of the United States that has legalized physician-assisted suicide. And they have the Death with Dignity Act that states that any patient who is terminally ill and gets told that they have 6 months or less to live, those people can be prescribed a lethal drug and they can decide to end their lives. And that is the Death with Dignity Act in Oregon. Also, physician-assisted suicide is not in the Constitution. And anything that's not in the Constitution is left up to the states to decide. And 7 states have decided that it is morally right and deemed it constitutional to have physician-assisted suicide. 68% of Americans believe that it's morally right. And the 14th Amendment states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States, and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, and property. So there it is saying that everybody gets the right to life, liberty, and property, and everybody should get the right to do what they want and be sovereign, as long as it's not hurting anybody or, obviously. I'm sorry, the 14th Amendment, it says that in